Okay, so this is day two, Mishlei 25, 6 through 7. Al tis hadar lifnei melech, uvimkum gdolim al tamod, kitov amar lecha alehina mihashpilcha lifnei nadiv asher ro'inecha. All right, so we translate it as do not glorify yourself in the presence of a king. I realized afterwards that there is another translation of tis hadar based on the infrequent use of hispa'el, which the Meiri is going to talk about. So just bear that in mind. And in the place of the great ones, or I think one of our meforshim said nichbadim, I think shadigan maybe respected ones, do not stand or don't set yourself up. For it is better that it be told to you, Ale, come up here, than that you be lowered or demoted or abased before a noble or a prince or a ruler that your eyes have already seen. So our questions were, what's the subject? Is it your status? Is it pride, the king status? 2, what are the parameters of the scenario? 3, who are the melech, the gedolim, and the nadiv? I guess that's kind of part of the parameters. 4, what's the relationship between the two halves of pasuk vav? Is it, with the melech and the gedolim, is it repeating itself, or are these two dimensions of the same scenario, meaning you've got the melech and the gedolim there, or is it just two similar scenarios, but you need slightly different advice? And then also, what's the difference between al tis hadar and al tamod? What are lifnei and bimkom? What, if anything, is the significance of amar lach alehena? Why is this advice formulated in terms of speech, like he says to you, come up here, instead of just focusing on the going up or not going up? Is it ever good to be mishadar? Likewise, is it implying that you are being mishadar once you're called up? And if you are being called up, how is that tishadar? In other words, is it saying once you're called up, don't be mishadar, or don't be mishadar to get yourself up there? And if you are being called up, how is that tishadar, glorifying yourself? Isn't it the king glorifying you? Is this actually good advice? You might think that this could lead to like being overlooked. What does the alehina do for you? Is this also to be understood as taking place lifnei nadiv? What's the consequence of being lowered? Isn't it good to be shval ruach? Why do we care what your standing is in the eyes of the nadiv? And moreover, is the nadiv part of the consequence alluded to here? Meaning, asher kvar lifnei nadiv asher kvar ro'inecha, or is it just a reference to some precedent that you have supposedly seen? What is added by asher ro'inecha? And what prompts Sadigon refers to add shekavar ro'inecha? To what extent should our reading of this couplet be influenced by the previous pesukim? Is this part of the general cluster about kings, or is the scenario in the previous couplet of a Russia before king relevant to understanding our case? Meaning, is it more directly related to the previous one? What's the practical advice being conveyed by the combination of the two pesukim? What's the derech nister? Is the derech nister, is the melech a reference to Hashem, the Yitzhar, or Yitzer Tov? And then what are the other elements, the gedolim and the nadiv? And then who's the intended audience? Clearly, it's someone before the king, but is this someone in his council, or is it a peasant or a nobleman or a friend of the king? Okay, so I'm not going to review all the ideas from yesterday, but I do want to bring out. Let's actually jump right to the Metzudas David, because I think he has a more shoddy pshat than what we had. Okay, I think, if I'm reading him correctly. So Metzudas David says, Al tis hadar, al tas atmecha hadar v'yafe at least gaos. Do not make yourself beautiful and, or I guess hadar is magnificent and beautiful lihis gaos, to make yourself haughty, or to be haughty, or to make yourself raised up. Okay, we'll have to figure out what he means there. Kasher tamul v'nei melech, when you stand before the king. V'al tidchok atmecha la'amot, and don't. There's got to be a better way than force yourself to stand. I think he means like don't like contrive situations where you're going to stand before the gedolim in the places where the gedolim and the chashuvim are. So just stop for 1 second here. So how is he learning the advice practically, or the scenario practically? I think it's not entirely clear, but what's your read here? To me, it sounds like he's saying, when you are before the king, don't glorify yourself, lest it. I don't know if lihis gaus is talking about your intention or how it's going to be perceived. But in other words, I don't know how you guys were learning it. I was learning it that the pasuk above is telling you don't go before the king without being summoned. But it sounds like he's saying, when you are before the king, don't do this. And then with the gedolim, that's where he's saying don't go up there on your own. And it sounds like he's learning. Well, we haven't seen Zion yet, but according to that reading, Zion would be a continuation of the second half of Vav. Yeah.
What does it mean if I'll take you don't literally stand, or don't?
I think it means to like scrambling to get up to that point. I don't think like standing and sitting, but I think like to position yourself for the king. But the main difference is that the first half of 6 is when you find yourself there, this is what you should not do, and then the other one is don't do this. All right, let's see how he does Zion. Kitov yoser tov l'cha l'sheves b'makom hashvelim. I don't think l'sheves also means standing and sitting, but I mean, better for you to be located in the place of shvelim, v'ha'omer lach, v'ha'omer yomer lach alehena, and that the person who speaks to you says, "Come up here." L'sheves b'makom hagdolim, then to sit in place of gedolim. Sorry, to sit in place of gedolim. Mi shetagbia l'sheves. Then for you to raise yourself up to sit there, Yomer lach hashpel v'reid lifnei nadiv, and he'll say to you, lower yourself and go down before the nadiv, val teshiv b'makoma, and don't sit in his place. So I think he's learning the nadiv and the gedolim are the same. Asher ra'u, asher kain ra'u einacha shikra lazos. You've seen this happen. Asher omrim laha ole redei. That's someone who goes up, they tell him to go down. So I think simple point. Tell me what you think about this. I think we were talking about, like, my idea was don't look too eager to promote yourself because that's going to be perceived as either haughty or a threat, and then they're going to shoot you down in response. I wonder, I mean, I'm not denying that I'm not saying he wouldn't agree with that, but I'm just wondering just the simple mechanics of, a person could say, it doesn't matter where I end. Like what really matters is what level I am at the end of the day. But I think what he's saying is having a demotion on your record or in the public perception is just going to be worse for you than not having that. And it's going to be to your advantage to have a promotion on your record. In other words, like, I think what it's saying is from a simple calculus of kavod, you don't want to, like, the guy who jumps to the top is trying to get a record of like success, but he's running a huge risk because if it fails, it's going to actually end up being worse for him in his kavod than it would be if he is naturally promoted. I think this is just a very, very subtle point that we didn't talk about. I don't think. Yeah.
And you're saying he's not going to have kavod generally if it gets lowered?
Yeah. In other words, there's going to be a stain on his kavod if he's told to leave and to go down. Whereas if he just waits, it's true that like he might not get promoted as quickly as he thinks, but when he does, it's going to be only a upside, And I do feel like this is a relevant thing because the motive for this is kavod, and this is a very Mishlei type of advice, which is that if you care about kavod, don't seek kavod in a way that puts your kavod at risk. Yeah.
When would it be a good idea to seek kavod?
So I think that's why, like, I'll say it because I don't think I've said it in a while, but like, the difference, I feel like we talked about this at the Zimmers recently, I forgot who was there, but like, Mishlei, the difference between Mishlei and Koheles, one difference in my opinion is, Mishlei is about means, Koheles is about ends. So Mishlei takes all of the things that people naturally want and says, this is how you do it with Chachma. So you want money, Chachma, foolishness, tzedek, resha. You want kavod, you want power. Mishlei will show you how to do that. Whereas Koheles doesn't care about the decisions; it cares about what you're seeking and shows you why these things that people seek are not worthwhile or not going to bring you what you want. So I don't know if Mishlei is I don't think Mishlei is endorsing that you seek kavod, but there are times when when kavod is either a necessary part of the role that you have, or it's instrumental to achieving some objective good, or you just want kavod and like go to Koheles to tell you why not, Yeah.
What would be the benefit of Mishlei helping you if it's a bad idea? Like, why would...
I mean, because what Mishlei is trying to do is trying to get you to level up in terms of your decision making from Na'ar and Pesi to Chacham and Navon. And then presumably once you get there, you'll start thinking about the consequences and you'll realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't seek kavod in this way. I mean, my favorite example, which I've given a bazillion times, is the Mishlei's approach to revenge, right? Is that really you shouldn't take revenge, but Mishlei recognizes that people are driven to take revenge. And so Mishlei, there are a couple of pesukim where Mishlei tells you how to take revenge effectively and intelligently instead of foolishly in a way that's going to harm you. And then once you get to that level, then you could get to the next level where you don't seek vengeance at all. So it is trying to like level you up. So Yeah. Yeah. So again, this is just a minor point here. The downside of me learning Vav and Zayin as being when you are before the king, as opposed to treating both scenarios in Vav as the same, is that he doesn't really elaborate on when you're in front of the king, don't adorn yourself. I guess there's always a risk there also of the king shooting you down for the reasons we said yesterday, and then that's going to be stayed on your kavod as well. And in other words, like recognizing that standing before the king itself is a kavod, so don't give into this temptation of I'm going to seek even more kavod and then get shot down. Okay, a nuance that I only have seen so far the Rabag point out. I'm not even going to do the whole Rabag. That's short enough. We'll do it, I guess. But the yellow part's the one I want. All right. Altis hadar l'fnei melech l'seis mala gedula la'atzmecha, to ascribe stature and greatness to yourself. Aval tama lefanav v'shiflas, you should stand for him in lowliness. Uvimkom gedolim l'seis la'atzmecha ma'ala k'ma'ala sam l'shevis imahim b'mkomam, and also don't. I think this is going on the don't. Stand in front of the gedolim and give yourself mala like their mala. And sit in their place. Kitov sheyomru lecha ale. Better for them to say to you, ascend. I don't know if the yomru is davka. He's only talking about the gedolim and not the king scenario. Alehina mirov hashpilcha atzmecha. I don't know if this is a typo. Kitov sheyomru lecha alehina mirov hashpilcha atmecha. I feel like there's something going on here that's funky. Mihashpilcha lifnei nadiv v'gadol. Okay, ignore that for 1 second. Ashir ra'uinecha. Now this is the part. V'hur galta imo mikedem. Okay, so then for you to be lowered before a nadiv and a prominent person that your eyes have seen and you've become familiar with from before. V'ulam amarzeh, and he's saying this, ki mishu hurgo im adam, because someone who you are accustomed to, meaning that you're on like familiar terms with, the achar kain Allah b'mala yasera la'atmo, and then afterwards he gets promoted to a higher position than you. He's nahig imo kavarishona. So, okay, I missed a word here, but in other words, don't allow yourself to continue being noig with him like you used to be. The einze royalo shiachlo kavod lifnei mashu lefi mashu ata. Sorry, the einze royalo. I feel like there's. I'll tell you what I think he's saying. I'm not reading it properly, but I think he's saying like this: is let's say like you and I were in the same station, and then you get promoted. So there's going to be a temptation that I'm going to continue treating you the way that we were like buddy from before, but that's not proper. Yeah. So he's trying. I think he is trying to say asher ra'uinecha. He's trying to explain what that's doing there. Yeah. But I didn't quite get the rest of what he's saying. And also, I don't know to what extent he is treating this as a prot of the idea, or if this is like going to change the way that we're relating to the entire thing.
Why would it be that you shouldn't relate to the guy the same way?
Right. So it's definitely going to be when people see you being disrespectful to him, that's not going to go well for you, right? I mean, you could say it's not going to go well for him also, but I think it's actually going to be worse for you because you're treating him in a way that is not proper. I'll give
for other people too.
For other people also, yeah. I'll give a like an example of this would be if you are in the military and you are in the same rank as someone, and then the other guy gets promoted to a higher rank, and the rankings are very rigid, it is gonna really look bad for you to like treat this guy familiarly, So yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what else to make of this. You have an example, or you just
I was just thinking about that. Like, it's like, do I know that? Like,
clap on the back type? Yeah. It's like no. Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like there's one more idea we can get from this though. Because I feel like I'm wondering, is there a distorted idea here of kavod, or how kavod works, as opposed to just like okay, there is a phenomenon of just like your old habits just take over, but I wonder if there is a distortion of the kavod here, because the two pesukim seem to be about kavod. Yeah.
well, I mean, I would say that part of the reason why people might not do that is because they don't want to accept that maybe this person got raised to a high level, whereas they didn't. I mean, if you were on the same
Right.
person who reads to a higher level,
Yeah.
there's going to be some jealousy or
Right.
some reason why you're going to want to like almost keep them on
Right.
your
So you
level.
preserve, you preserve the old dynamic.
Right. So
Yeah.
by like not being Machalik Kavod to them, you're now still on the same level.
Right. That's a good point. Right. So it's you don't, it's also like implicit, like you don't deserve the covet if you don't really understand this covet dynamic. And and like if you were in that guy's position, you would not want someone doing that to you. So like it's funny to say this. It's a very egocentric idea of kavod. I mean, like in other words, I mean, I know all kavod is going to cater to the ego to an extent, but like you're kind of wanting a different standard of kavod for yourself than you want to give this to this guy, and that's gonna lead to that double standard in kavod is gonna lead to you not seeking kavod in the right way because you clearly don't understand how it works. Yeah, Isaac.
I think also when a person's doing this, he's trying to get, I'd say, sort of like secondhand kavod. Like I'm at a high enough level that I can be, familiar, like overly familiar with
Right.
this guy.
Basking in the glow. Yeah. Okay, let's switch to the meiri. And what I want to show about the meiri here is did you have something else, Isaac, or is that hand from before? I didn't see if you put it down. All right. So Meiri has a different read on Tis Hadar, and then I want to do the Derek Nister. Okay. So he says, oops, sorry. All right. He says Yadua b'binyan Hispael. So it's known that in the binyan of Hispael, and by the way, the Meiri makes this point a lot, that she'echan mechalakav, I think that one of its subdivisions, meaning one of the applications of Hispael, who sibuv hamikra la'atzmo, is the bringing about of an accidental quality to oneself. Okay, meaning the example I think that I first saw this in is he says Yish misasher ve'ein kol, and then something. Let me look it up. Misasher. So this is a pasuk where the majority of the meforshim translate it. Yeah, Yish misasher ve'ein kol mis roshesh v'hon rav. So in 13:7, the majority of the meforshim interpret it as there are people who make themselves wealthy and then end up without anything, and then there are people who I forgot how they translate the other one, but in other words, the normal hispile is to make yourself into the thing, but then the meiri interprets this, which I think is a better shot, is there are people who pretend to be rich and don't have anything, and there are people who pretend to be poor but they have a lot of money and pretend like a miser who's like bank accounts are loaded but he lives in poverty. So I think that's what he's talking about here. So he says al tishadar klomer al taase atzmcha lefanav ki adam hidor v'nichbad ajtamu lefanav begaiva. Don't like make yourself in front of him like a person who is distinguished and respected to the point where you stand in front of him begaiva. Don't, I think, artificially make yourself on their level. To seat yourself with them without permission. Better for you to stay in your place. Lech alehena. I don't know, or yeah, I think that's how he's learning it. Better for you to stay in your place until they summon you there. Sorry, misha titzarach lahashpil atzmacha lifnei nadiv. Better that than you needing to lower yourself before the nadiv. Asher kvar rawenecha b'shifluso, that you've seen in your eyes in his degradation. So this is another interpretation that we have not seen. The pasuk is being concise and does not want to mention him, the nadiv, in a manner of shiflus. Because he used to be, or at the time, he is a nadiv nechbad. Pirushu rabim ra'u. I've never seen this before. Kumo bazu. Miloshin mora'a v'nig Allah. So in Tzfanya 3:1, which we all learn, hoy mora'a v'nig Allah ha'ir hayona. So Metzution says mora'a, which sounds like lashon like re'iyah, and ga'ala sounds like lashon geula, saying no, these are both inyan shneim meluchlach u'metunaf. It means dirty and filthy. Kumo v'samticha kiru'i, ukumo nig'alu b'dam. So in other words, it means like it's a lashon of shiflus and lowliness. And then Meiri goes on. He says, "V'oy la." Oh, sorry, Klomar shekvar haya hu nivza beinecha. He was already degraded in your eyes. V'oy la laosa busha, and woe unto I don't know what the law is for that busha. Is there a footnote 18 that says it? No. Yeah. Okay. So what is? I mean, there's certainly elements here that we've seen in our shot, but what is he getting at here? I mean, I think one thing he's taking a stance on is we said there were a couple of you yesterday who wanted to say that this is limited to someone who is pretending to be great. And I was saying, no, even if you do have a great quality, you shouldn't draw attention to yourself. He seems to be taking the thing of like, don't try to artificially like, boost the appearance of your standing for the king. So I'm wondering, is that just the way he's learning it based on the words, or is that going to affect the idea that there's a specific idea for people pretending? I mean, I think he gives us a clue, that I think that the person who wants to get ahead or wants to be viewed in the eyes of people as being great is motivated by gaiva, and adorning yourself in that way or putting yourself in that position is only going to inflate your gaiva and make you have even worse judgment, you know? So what would be an example that highlights this specific thing? I mean, I do think one example of this in yeshiva, which thankfully has not been a trend lately, but when I was in yeshiva and maybe a little bit afterwards, then I think there were guys who clearly should not have been in the top shiur, but like they wanted the prestige of doing that, and so they would put themselves in the top shiur and then really just not understand stuff, but stay in there because they wanted that, and they'd be afraid to go back down because that would be a pagam in their chachma prestige, you know. So there, the gaiva is fueling the fall, like gaiva always does, you know. Like in other words, like you put yourself there out of gaiva, and then you bask in the gaiva of being in that station, which just continues to fuel the artificially propping yourself up. And like all things that when you're artificially propping yourself up, then it's only a matter of time before like, the reality is exposed and you get lowered down. In other words, it's not like I think there is a feeling that some people have of like, if I just get in the door, then like I've secured my my position. But no, if it's unearned, you're going to continue to feel your gaiva, and then it's going to be lower. It's not like you just it's not like you it's not like it could be locked in, which I think is a fantasy about gaiva. Yeah, Isaac?
There's a lot of parallels to be made between being before a king and like getting a promotion, or in a lot of jobs,
Yeah.
Like, oh, if I can just get this promotion and then it's going to be great. But if you're not ready to be operating on that level,
right,
even if you can fool people into giving you the promotion, it's still not going to be good for you.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's do the derech nister now. And so he says exactly what I thought he was going to say. This is a very common theme in the meiri. Derech nister he'ar lihicham min haharisa laval yehersu liros. Okay, so that's the phrase that I think we mentioned yesterday from Har Sinai. Yeah. So this is just to quote it in context here, in 19, I think. Hotel, thanks. So V'yomer Moshe el Hashem lo yuchal ha'am la'alos al Har Sinai ki ata ha'idos abana lemor hagbelas ha'har v'kidash tel. So Moshe said to Hashem, the people cannot ascend Har Sinai because you have warned us, saying, create boundaries around the mountain and sanctify it. V'yomer elav Hashem, and Hashem said to him, that's funny, he says lech raid, right? Go down, Alisa, and then come up, Atav Aaron imach, you and Aaron with you, v'kohanim ha'am al yehersu la'alos el Hashem pen yifrotz bam. So the kohanim and the do not break through to ascend to Hashem, lest he burst forth against them. Okay, so that's warning them to not go beyond their place. He says, "Pen tiga bahem yad hamichshol," lest they. That's another borrowing the lashon of the pasuk. Lest they the stumbling block strike them. V'yirdu matamata, and then they get knocked down lower and lower. V'kolshkein b'ha'aras hastaras hasodos. All the more so in concealing secrets. esoteric ideas. That a person should not seek that someone who is not meaning if you're not roy for them, don't ask someone to reveal them to you. You should ascend very, very slowly. Don't break forth to ascend. Lest, again, borrowing the lesson of the pasuk, lest many of you fall. Yeah. Okay. Right. So again, common meiri thing, but let's just talk it out here. Is that I think what we just said about the promotion thing, that even if you could trick people into getting the promotion, does not mean that you're ready for it. And if you're not ready for it, it has to have consequences. Kal v'chomer for your soul, right, or your mind, is if you try to get an idea that you're not intellectually or psychologically ready for, it will not land properly. Either you will misunderstand it, or it'll affect your psyche in a way that is detrimental, and it will knock you back down. It will again, going for the Rosh Batz's explanation of the Arba Nichnas Lepardes, as he explains in his Pirush on the Haggadah in the Arba Banim, that you had Rabbi Kiva who went in peace and went out in peace. You had Elisha ben Avuya who became an Apikoros. You had Ben Zoma who went crazy, and then you have Ben Azai who died, right? So the Rashbat understands it to mean, so Rabbi Kiva means that he was ready for it, so he got the ideas. Elisha ben Avuya became a kofar, right? So that's, I guess it depends on how you learn his story, but whether it's an intellectual kfira or an emotional kfira as the cause. But then Ben Zoma going crazy is that, me warning, I should stop. Ben Zoma going crazy was that it messed him up developmentally, psychologically, or intellectually, I guess. But it messed him up going forward and made it so that he would distort things, not in a kfir way necessarily, but like in a way that it would be false ideas. And then the Ben Azai died. His interpretation, according to my understanding, is not that he dropped dead, but that he stopped developing. It stunted him permanently, and he was not able to develop past that. He got into a dead end developmentally. So those are three things that can happen to you if you go into a sod that you're not ready for. Is either it will make you a kofar, or it will mess up your ability to think accurately, or it will stunt you. And it has to happen because learning isn't magic. You can't just it's not like a math problem where you look at the answer in the back of the book and you could get points on your assignment. It's not about saying the right words. It's about internalizing it in the right way that is actually going to register, So yeah. And there are other meforshim who took this as well. Rav Sheshis, who was taking all our pesukim to be about in a derech nister way. He says, "Altis hadar klomer al yashiacha libecha lahagis daitcha klapi shmaya livtoch b'sichlecha b'mufla mimcha." Don't be seduced by your heart to make your mind brazen vis-a-vis heaven, to trust in your intellect in that which is greater than you. B'mkom gdolim al tamod klomer lachkor b'dvarim ha'omdim b'rumo sha'olam, to investigate things that are in the heights of the universe. You will not be able to investigate to arrive at the truth, and your investigation will be derech sheker. And he goes on and applies that for more than that. Yeah. So again, that's especially pressing words for people who are in a philosophical yeshiva, where there is a temptation to go into areas that you're not ready for, and better to err on the side of caution than to run the risk. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I have to stop now, but Thursday this year. Okay. All right. Good ideas though. And I think so far it seems like this idea is just as rich as the other ones, even though it was stated in more direct lashon. All right. See ya.